Hey guys, the Unsmooth Criminal here, and this is going to be a new what if, hopefully, if you guys like this enough, of what if Femme Deku was a beastkin or demi-human in some fiction novels or fiction animes or fiction shows, and was in medieval times. So, the backstory of this is UA is a nightly school, and Izuku or Izumi she's gonna be known as, is a half blood of two different beastkin races, a Nico or cat and a badger, which is not gonna be good for her, but it's also not gonna be good for anybody else. And everybody has these things called systems. So it's going to be kind of like she has a system, but not like she has a system. So she's born and she gets her system when she's 4. But she's born with green hair and a tail of a cat with the pattern of a badger on it. And everybody sees this and is like, that's strange. And they look at it, her father, and they see that he's a badger, and her mother, who's a cat, go, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And so she grows up a little bit of an outcast in her normal little beastkin race. So they are an outcast, and she's an outcast, so she's even more of an outcast than normal. So we skip to when she's 3, and she's currently playing in a room with the straw dolls that she's made, and she found out that she has the ability to make these things called voodoo dolls. And everybody's like, voodoo's black magic, you shouldn't use it. And Izumi, who is a prodigy at voodoo, is like, it's strange that everybody calls it black magic when everybody in the world has used it before and is using it currently, because all magic is the same. But what they don't know is Izumi's been practicing with the voodoo magic. And one of the people who's been terrorizing their town, she accidentally bumped into, well, on accident, it's in air quotes, she bumped into, and she scratched him on accident. So she had to pay the price of getting a few whips in the back, and she just kept saying, I'm sorry. But to protect the town, she took one of her voodoo dolls and put the blood or some kind of genetic material from this man, because they know that there's got to be something from the man or woman on the voodoo doll for it to work. She puts it on the voodoo doll, and she squeezes the voodoo doll and crushes it. And the man who takes a look at the dead body sees that the heart was crushed, the stomach was crushed, the lungs were crushed, everything in him was crushed, not the bones though. And he's like, only magic can do this. I don't know what kind of magic, but only magic can do this. And he just put it off as an assassination, and that he must have had a bounty that someone wanted to collect. And Izumi was known in the town as, well, not known, but known in the town as the savior and the villain of the town. Because everybody knows she has voodoo, the ability for voodoo, and that she is a half-blood for badgers and cats alike. And one day, while she's growing up, she's currently 9 at this point, her parents get killed, and she goes on out into the woods and makes a life for herself. Oh, 3 o'clock at my place. There you go. So she made a life for herself in the woods, and it's now 20 years later, so she's 29, and the Knights, or the institution that UA is a school that you can go into at any age to learn more about your magic and more about fighting. And she's known as the Wicked Witch in the woods, and that she is the outcast of the outcasts. But everybody goes to her for A, advice, and B, if they need somebody dead. And she has a very high price. So everybody goes with a very expensive item, or if she doesn't want the expensive item, they have to do a task for her. And I'll be right back. So one day, this young man who's part wolf and part human, has half white, half red hair, and he walks into the woods looking for this wicked witch and wants to ask if he can get a favor from her. And she gladly accepts him into her home, and he asks if she can change someone's mindset. And she says, "Sorry, I can't." And she opens the door for him to leave, but he says, "That's fine, I just need someone to be dealt with and someone to be found." And she goes, "I can do the first, I can't do the second." And he goes, "I would like my father killed for what he did to my family." And she says, "What did he do to your family?" And he says, "He tore my family apart for wanting a perfect child." And she asks, "Who is his father?" And he says his father is known as Warwick, or the vigilante / hero Endeavor. Yes, I'm adding Warwick. Sorry, I like that character. And she goes, okay, I understand. But what did he do that's so bad?" And he goes, "He tore my family apart just by wanting children." And she asks, "So what about your mother?" And he says, "She went crazy and gave me this scar," and shows the scar. "Now that I have the scar, I am forever unable to see her, or she freaks out and wants me dead." And she goes, and Izumi says, "I can get rid of that scar for you, and I can change your hair to full white. But there's consequences to this procedure." And he goes, "Whatever it is, I'll take it." And she goes, "It's not that simple. I need some of your father's hair." And he goes, "Oh, God. What?" And she goes, "Just listen, I need some of your father's hair and some of your mother's blood. And I can change your hair from red to white. You'll still have the powers of both your father and your mother, because I'm guessing your mother had the ice magic and was known as one of the ice wizards of the castle, and your father was one of the fire wizards." And he looks at her and says, "Yeah." And she goes, "Yeah, I kind of guessed that, but you'll still have the fire and ice magic, but you'll look completely ice." And he goes, "That makes sense." And she goes, "The changing the mindset won't work. The killing won't fix the problem. And I'm guessing you're also wondering where your brother is." And he widens his eyes, not knowing that she knew about his brother. And he asks, "How'd you know about my brother?" And she goes, and she turns around, walks to the back of the hut thing, and says, "God damn it, get the hell down here." And he's like, but, and she goes, "If you don't get down here, I'll crush your leg again." And he goes, "Fine." And he rushes down and he sees his brother Shoto, and Toya starts to freak out, being like, why the hell did you make me come down here? And she goes, because your family's here and I don't like family staying away from family. So talk to him or I'll kick you out. He goes, fine. So they catch up, and she's currently brewing the concoction for Shoto to change his hair from white and red to full white. And she says that once you get the blood of your mother and the hair of your father, you will be able to change your appearance to full white. So you put the blood and hair in this bottle with the concoction and shake it up real well, and you're gonna change. And he goes, okay. And he asks, so did you learn this from UA? And she goes, did I ever go to UA? No. Have I learned anything from UA? No. Have I heard of UA? Yes. Do I care for UA? No. And all of a sudden, this knight comes barging into the cabin saying, we need your help. The king has been poisoned. And she goes, no. And he goes, what do you want? We'll give you anything. And she goes, still no. And Shoto looks at her and goes, but it's the king. And she goes, I know it's the king. And if he paid attention to his god-dang subjects, I'd be able to live in my village like I wanted to when I was little. Besides coming out here and building a life for myself when I was 9 because nobody liked me. And she starts berating the knight for not checking on the villages and making sure everybody was at peace. And this knight, who was part lizard, part dragonkin, he's like, we're sorry, we can't get to every village. And she goes, I know. But you could at least tone it down instead of having all of the segregation and abuse towards half-breeds or half-bloods, whatever you want to call them. They're just living creatures. And she starts spewing out this negativity towards basically purebred. And she starts spewing out negativity towards the king because he has this snobby reaction sometimes. And she goes, I'll make a proposition with you. If you unoutlaw, and she does look like this, by the way, in the picture, she does look like this, because she has a hood on, she has his clothes on that cover her beastkin extremities. If you can outlaw, or unoutlaw, voodoo and my kind of magic, I will gladly help your king. And he goes, oh, that's a decision for him to make? And she goes, yeah, and you can be a proxy for him. And he goes, I don't have that much power. And the chief knight commander walks through the door, and his name is Toshinori Yagi, or All Might. And he says, I have that power, and I say I agree, and I shall get you into UA too, so you can learn the history of your magic. She goes, I don't need to. I don't need to learn the history of my magic. My system gives me all that. And they look at her and go, Beastkins normally don't have systems. She goes, yeah, I know. I'm a half-blood Beastkin, though. I'm half Badger, half Nico, so I'm kind of a special Beastkin. I have high physical resistance, high magical resistance, and high magic affinity. So, and they look at her like she is a diamond in the rough and say, okay, we agree, and instead of you being out in the middle of nowhere, we'll move you to UA so you can have all the ingredients you need and whatever you want. And she goes, okay, I guess. So they say, thank you, and they point her towards a horse, and she goes, yeah, no, I'm not getting on that thing. I don't like animals that I ride on. And then she summons she uses her voodoo to control one of the horses, and make it go away. So it's just the exact amount of animals for the knights. And she goes, I'll run there. And she starts running with a beast mimicry stance that Kiba had in the Naruto tuning exams arc. And she starts running with that stance, and she's taking off. And maybe 6 hours later, she's halfway through the kingdom, and she's still running and at full stamina, because she's been training her ass off to be this strong, and her badger, her side, also helps with it. And the horses are way behind her, and she took the Knight Commander's medallion and a letter from the Knight Commander to make sure she can get into the castle and to the king. And she gets to the gate guards at 9 o'clock at night, and they are like, halt, who goes there? And she goes, I'm the person who's supposed to heal the king, so if you could kindly move out of the way so I can heal him. They go, we sent to go get the Wicked Witch, not a beastkin. And she goes, I am the Wicked Witch, and here's the medallion from the Knight Commander that he never puts down, and here's the letter to prove that it's the medallion from the Knight Commander. And she thrusts it at him, knocking him against the wall, and says, I'm going in, whether you like it or not, to heal the king, because I have been tasked to, and I don't fail on my promises. And I can beat the shit out of all of the guards, or you can let me in, walk me to the king, and I heal him, and then walk out and go upon my day like I normally do. And they go, yes, ma'am, and they're scared of her now, because she doesn't give a crap what she does. And they walk her into the king's chamber, and they see what has happened to her, and she grabs one of her dolls, and she plucks a hair from his head, straps it to the doll, and carves some runes into the doll. And he winces in pain a little, and all of a sudden he gets up like nothing's wrong with him. And he asks what the hell happened. He's shirtless, and one of the maids is taking the pillow because it's wet, and she's going to clean it, and sees the runes on his back, and she asks, is this your magic? And she goes, yes, my magic is voodoo, and I've been curing and killing with my magic. That rune on his back makes him immune to any poison and any ailment for the rest of his life. And she bows, greeting her, introducing herself to the king, and says that I am the one that your Knight Commander has sent for, and I came here early, well, as fast as I can, to heal you so I can take on my payment. And he goes, what has the Knight Commander promised? And she lays down what they agreed upon, and he goes, the voodoo I'm iffy about, but since he promised it to you, I shall agree upon it, because I trust his judgment, and I shall have my master builders to build the cabin for you in UA, on the grounds of UA, and it'll be done in 24 hours. She goes, no, I can get it done within an hour. And she snaps her fingers, and the Knight Commander, who barely left the cottage, sees the cottage disappear, and is like, what the hell just happened? And it turns into a little mound again like it was, and a hill starts rising in the middle, or not middle, in a little forest area that UA has, and all of a sudden this tree starts to grow on it, and this voodoo magic that she has is not just any voodoo magic, it's life and death voodoo magic. So she has control over life and death. So she walks to the door and takes her leave. She straight to UA, and they are like, okay, who are you and what are you doing here? And she goes, I am the one who healed the king, and I am here to walk into my house. And they go, and then a messenger who was on a horse, and it takes like 2 hours from the capital to UA from horse. And for her, it took like 3 minutes because she's that fast. So she was just waiting there, and the person who was supposed to bring the letter finally shows up, and they bring the letter from the king to grant her permission into the UA grounds. So Izumi is now in UA, and she's now able to do whatever the hell she wants on UA. So she finally finds out what UA is meant for and what UA was built from and why UA is so important. And the principal, who is still Nezu, and he's a beastkin in this one, but he's more beast than kin. And he walks up to Izumi and says, you must be the Wicked Witch, and I am Nezu. I am here to introduce you to UA, and I am forever in your debt for saving one of my distant relatives. And she goes, so what, did one of his distant parent-in-laws conceive you? And he goes, exactly. And she goes, oh, makes sense now. And so Nezu says that with the help of you, I am now able to continue as principal instead of having to take the crown for a short amount of time and pose as the king so he can heal. And she goes, you would have done it anyway. So, what exactly is UA for? And he goes, that there's a demonic threat that looms upon our horizon, and we are the people who suppress it. And she goes, so the demons are real? And he goes, yeah, and voodoo magic is also a form of demon magic. And she goes, oh, that's why it's outlawed. And he goes, yes, and I heard that you have a very special kind of voodoo magic. She goes, yeah, I got magic that controls life and death, so if you want me to kill someone, I can. If you want me to revive someone, I can bring them back as a zombie with some cognitive functions, but not very many. And he goes, makes sense. So, I saw your house build itself, and it's currently bubbling away at something. And she goes, oh yeah, I can't go into it for a good hour or two, so I'm just going to be walking around UA until it's done. And he goes, makes sense. So hopefully you enjoy your stay here, and I'll see you later. And he takes his leave, and she starts walking around UA. She sees the blacksmith area. She sees the leatherworking area. She sees this one woman who's just hammering her away at metal, and when she's done hammering at metal, she leaves it in the fire for a little bit and starts working on some leather. And she's like, that's strange. Normally a blacksmith doesn't do leather working. And she goes to the night course and sees these students practicing magic and swordsmanship, and is like, okay, this must be the advanced course. And she goes to the she saw the number for the door and it said 1A, and she goes to the 1B door and looks in, and they're practicing just swordsmanship. And she goes, okay, so this must be the less advanced course. And she just keeps going down and down and down the ranks, and she's like, okay, so it just gets lower and lower in there in the intelligence ranking. So I'm guessing, and she goes back towards 1A and passes 1A, and then walks to a door and sees the word principal's office above it and says, yep, I thought so. This is his office. And she walks in and she sees this man standing there, and this man sees her and gets sparkles in his eyes, being like, oh, and she goes, don't you dare try to pet me or I'll bite your hand off. And he goes, oh. And she sees this and like, why is he so cute? And he goes, okay, Nezu, whose house is that just built itself? And he points at the girls and says, that young girl right over there. And he looks at her and goes, stop joking. Now, who is it? And he points over and he goes, really? And Nezu goes, yes. Yes, Aizawa, yes. And he goes, oh. Aizawa in this one is 40-some, so he's not the ship. Don't worry. All these students are roughly 29-ish. So she's like, I think my house is done roughly now, so I'm gonna go start my work. And she walks off and he asks Nezu, saying, so she is the witch? And he goes, she's not a witch. She's a Nico and a badger. And Aizawa goes, what? She's a cat and a badger. And Nezu goes, yes, she is, and she prefers not to be just called a cat and a badger. He goes, I know. Is she going to be in my class or Vlad's class? And I don't know Vlad King's real name, so I'm just going to call him Vlad. So I'm going to call him Vlad the Impaler because he is using blood and spike magic in this one. And Nezu says she's going to be in your class because that was our promise to her. And he goes, okay, so I get the prodigies this year, and Vlad gets the nitwits this year. And Nezu goes, no. You get the prodigies and he gets the average. And Aizawa says, what did I say? And Nezu says, you just demeaned our students. He goes, the problem children. And he walks to his class and he says, okay, class, we got a new student and she's currently at our house setting up, so we'll see her tomorrow. The very next day, Izumi walks into the room and sees everybody and sees someone that she hasn't seen for a really long time. She sees a pink-haired girl with ram horns and a snake-like tail, and she looks at this girl and says, oh, Mina, is that you? And Mina, looking over, says, Izumi! And yes, they met really long time ago, and yes, Mina is a manticore. So she's part lion, part goat, part lion, part snake, and part dragon. That's the manticore I'm going with. So she has wings, a snake has a tail, and lion head. So she somewhat has a mane, but doesn't really have a mane. And Izumi runs up to Mina, hugs her, and the tail snuggles in Izumi's breasts. And Mina says, it's been so long. And Izumi says, yeah. And Mina goes, so you finally came out of the hole in the ground that you built? And Izumi punches her, saying, hey, I love that home. And she goes, yeah, that's why it built itself over outside. And Izumi starts laughing, going, yeah, it did. And Aizawa walks in saying, okay, all you problem children, we're going to go have a test. And they all go, yes, sir. And she goes, why is everybody scared? And Mina is shaking slightly, going, Aizawa sensei is kind of scary. And she goes, he had sparkly eyes when he first saw me and called me cute. So I'm going to say he's not. And Aizawa at this point looks at her with a death stare and says, outside now. And at this point, Izumi took off her hood and she shows her cat ears, and her tail is showing through her coat to show her tail. And her tail is dark green, her hair is dark green, her eyes are dark green, but they have a slit down the center. So he says, I want to check how strong your magic power is, and he brings out a ball and he says, use your magic on this ball. And she goes, sir, I cannot use magic on objects. Unless it's a voodoo doll or a human being, I can't use magic on them. And he goes, damn voodoo people. I understand. Just go to the end of the line. So everybody else goes, and Izumi has the error because she can't use it on inanimate objects. Everybody else can. Mina uses her poison magic. Acid, poison, basically the same thing. Baku uses his explosion magic. Todoroki at this time is in this class, and he's saying this. He's seeing Izumi because, and Toya's in this class now because Toya finally came out of the woods. Because when Izumi snapped her fingers, it shot everybody out of her house. So Shoto and Toya were shot out of her house, and the house just disappeared. So they're kind of surprised that she's there, but not actually that surprised. He uses his fire and ice, and he has plain white hair this time, and his brother has red hair. And he still has scars because he's an ice mage. He has the body of an ice mage and the magic of a fire mage, so his body and magic don't really mix very well. So, they do the physical tests. Izumi passes with flying colors because she's a badger, and badgers are really stupid in physical exams. Cats are, well, when you don't mess with them, they're quite intelligent. I'm messing with my cat. So yes, when you mess with cats, they are not very intelligent. They just go off of instinct. But she's quite intelligent, so magic works off of intelligence, and she's been putting an even 50-50 split down her skills, and her class is called the 50-50 split. And her gear does boost her stats. Her robe helps her with her magic. Her boots help with her physical speed. Her gloves, which are fingerless gloves, by the way, they're fingerless gloves, help with her strength. And her hood, which is surprisingly different than what her robes are, helps with her stamina. Sorry for the long pauses, by the way. My cat's been distracting me. So, it's now on to the specific magical tests. So, ice users have to make as big of an iceberg as possible fire users are supposed to burn down a house that is built by some earth users. So they basically have to melt rock. And Izumi, who has life and death magic, has to kill some prisoners who are meant for execution. And Izumi walks up to the prisoners and takes a chunk of their hair and walks up to all of them, which is like 4 or 5 of them, picks a piece of hair off and sticks it onto 4 or 5 different voodoo dolls and puts a rune into the voodoo doll and pulls out another voodoo doll and puts a rune in that one, and she winces in pain and goes, hopefully this works. And she puts the runes together back to back, and the voodoo doll shrivels up into what looks like a raisin, and hers just glows a little and fades away. And then she pulls up the second voodoo doll with the brand on it, raisin, another one, raisin. So she does it with all 5 of them. And they ask what she did, and she said that I used their life force to extend my life force by a ton, and I can now survive the amount of time they had left. If they're ill, old, or not ill and old, or if they're just normal, like a human being. And they go, but that's impossible. And she goes, I'm a wielder of life and death magic. I think I know what I'm doing when I inscribe runes onto voodoo dolls. I don't know all the properties of voodoo, so you're going to have to tell me some in the comments, but it's now the USJ event, and it's called the USC in this timeline because it's the unforeseen, or UCJ, the unforeseen crossing joint. And they walk in and they see demons everywhere. And Izumi is like, oh, so this is a demon. And she just jumps into the air and grabs a small little imp and it's just looking over it and starts spinning it around like it's a toy, and this imp can't do anything about it. And everybody else is looking at Izumi like she's crazy, and she just keeps examining it, and then she takes her middle finger and stabs it in the heart. And it doesn't die. Then she uses her magic to find its other hearts, and she stabs each one of them, and she's like, ooh, and she just squeezes the imp's blood out, and it's purple blood, and she's like, cap it off and put it in a bag, and it disappears. And she's like, okay, I'm ready. And 13 in this one is a wielder of black hole magic, and she's not afraid to use it for sucking up imps. And she can't use it on big enemies, but she can pull enemies towards her. So all these imps are scared of 13, so they stay away from her. And some of the imps are just naturally gravitating towards Izumi. They don't know why, but they just are. So what time? Oh, it's 2:34. So Izumi is just picking imps out of the sky and draining them of their blood and their life force, because she can with her magic. And she's just doing it constantly and listening to 13 at the same time about how demon magic is very dangerous and how some people can't withstand it sometimes. So 13 finished off the explanation and says to Izumi that demon blood is very dangerous, and 13 hopes that she knows what she's doing. And Izumi says that she's dealt with demons before. And 13 looks at her and says, "Are you the witch of the forest? The wicked witch of the woods?" And it's not the wicked witch of the west, it's the wicked witch of the woods. Say that 5 times fast. I can't even say it freaking once. Yes, Leo, you're a pain in the butt. My cat Leo is next to me. So it's now getting late and the demons are getting more active. And they're supposed to camp out in this area for the night. And all of a sudden, this demonic thing walks out of a portal. And a half demon, half human walks out. And he says that he is here to take over this. He's here to eliminate the knights and to destroy UA. And Izumi's like, I have an idea. And she walks over to the big demon who looks at her and speaks, "Who are you?" And she walks up to this big demon and says, "Hold on, one sec." And she looks up at this demon and says, "I have a deal for you." And this demon looks at her and says, "What is it?" And she goes, "I have a deal that you can't refuse. It's 50 years in this world, but you have to be my test subject." And he looks at her and says, "What if I refuse?" And she goes, "I know you can't because you are currently fading into oblivion right now because of your energy is leaving you, and you need energy to live, and I have plenty of energy." And he looks at her and goes, "What is your name?" And she goes, "Oh, my name, that's not important right now. It's just a simple yes or no." And he goes, "I agree." And she goes, "Okay." And she pulls out a paper. And this paper is a demon pact, and his eyes widen, thinking, how the hell did a mortal get a demon's pact? And he signs it and drops a bit of blood, and she signs it, drops a bit of blood, and goes, "Okay, so you can't kill us and can't kill anybody, but you are now here for 50 years. And he nods his head and goes, "Okay, I agree." And he transforms into human form and goes, "Oh, see you, weirdo," and walks away from Shigaraki. And Shigaraki's like, "The hell did you just do?" And she goes, "I just made a pact. And he can't break a pact once he signed it. I just made a better pact than you did." And he goes, "But who are you?" And she goes, "First question is, who are you? And second question is, why do you need to know?" And he goes, "First off, I am a half demon, half human. Second off, I need to know you so I can stay away from you, because, you're terrifyingly strong." And she goes, "Well, yeah, duh. It's kind of obvious that I'm strong." And she just picks a piece of hair from him and puts it on a doll and says, "And you're dead now." And puts her doll next to his, and he shrivels up like a mummy and falls to the ground. And it's like, "Okay, let's keep going." So they finish the USJ, or the UCJ. It's the UCJ, unforeseen crossing joint. And everybody's looking at Izumi terrified because she just pulled out a demon's pact, and the demon was surprised about it. And she walks home and walks into her room one day, and she sees her little friend, the imp, just sitting there waiting for her. And she goes, "So, how's your friend doing?" And it goes, fine, fine, fine. What about you? You made another pact, didn't you? And she goes, yeah, I kind of had to save some people's lives. And he goes, makes sense. You are always thinking of other people before yourself. And she goes, not you too. Not that lighthearted, am I? And he goes, yeah, you are. Just think, when they told you to kill those prisoners, you asked what their crime was, and then you made your judgment if you wanted to kill them. And she goes, yeah, I'm very stingy about who I kill. That's why I didn't kill that asshole, number 2 hero, even though he does deserve it. And he goes, exactly. You're very stingy, and you're very hypocritical about who you kill. So the next thing I want you to do with our pact is make another pact with me. And she goes, no, we've already had 3 pacts drawn up, and I've already lived long enough. You don't need to make another pact. And he goes, oh, I do. This pact is going to help you a lot more than me. And she goes, what is it? And he says, I don't want to be in this plane of Earth anymore. I want to die, so I'm giving you the pact to... You can use whatever power you want from me, and you can do whatever the hell you want. But the pact is that if you break any of your own rules, you lose my power. And she goes, I agree. And later, she is just sitting on her couch, sitting on her homemade couch, wondering why she agreed to that pact, because now she's lonely. So she summons him back and says, I'm lonely. And he goes, that doesn't matter to me. And she goes, yes, it does. I'm adding a new condition to our pact. I can summon you when I'm lonely. He goes, friggin' fine. So she now has a little friend that she can summon whenever she's bored. So there's no sports festival in this one. Unless you guys want me to make a sports festival, which then I'd have to make a new arc around the sports festival. So it's the training camp, and they go out into the middle of the woods, and Izumi runs into the Wild Wolves Pussycats, and they are actually demi-humans. So they're actually cats in this one. And they're scared of Izumi at this point. So when they run into Izumi, they back up and say, hey, we got permission here. And she goes, I know. Plus, 3 feet that way. That's my line. And they go, oh, at least we didn't cross the line. And then one of the students was about to cross the line, and they go, stop. Wait, hold on. And they say, Izumi, can they walk onto your property? And she goes, no, they can't. And a wall of thorns grows in front of this student, and these students like, what the hell is this? And Izumi says, that's my property. Not the Pussycats. That's my property. And they're like, what? And she goes, I've lived out here longer than all you've lived combined. And they're like, we thought you were 29. And she goes, I am 29? Physically, I'm 29. Let's go with that. Physically, I'm 29. And you go, how old are you? And she goes, it's very rude to ask a woman her age. And the Mandalay and Pixie Bob start to giggle and laugh at this. And tiger starts to laugh his ass off from this sentence, and everybody starts to... all these students start to think, wait, what? So they now go to the training camp, and there's a wall of thorns separating them from the luscious part of the forest. And they ask, why can't we go into that part of the forest? And Izumi says, that's my forest, and I'm not allowing anybody to ruin it from the natural flow of this forest. And they ask, what's so special about this side of the forest? And she goes, first off, that forest has not been cut down. No tree has been harmed, and all the animals still live there in peace and don't know what human corruption in the forest is like. So, no. And they all look at Izumi being like, but you live there. And she goes, I know I live there. I only pick the herbs that are on the ground, not the full plants of the herbs. I pick the leaves, just enough to get the effect. I do whatever it has to keep the forest alive and natural. Unlike you barbarians, and she points at Aizawa and All Might, who are currently with them, who cut down forests just to get to the plants on the forest floor. And they look at her and go, we don't do that. And she goes, I don't care you don't do that. It's the people that you work for that do that. And they look at each other and go, what? And they make a mental note to ask the king about this and to get the forest to like them again. So Izumi is now berating them for ruining the forest. And they go, okay, we understand, and we will not do it anymore. We will not try to go onto that side of the forest. And she goes, good. The wall of thorns will stay up the entire time we're here. And all the pussycats are here. And when anybody goes near this side of the forest, that is not authorized by me. And the imp shows up saying, or me, and then disappears, and everybody looks at Izumi going, what the hell was that? And she goes, oh, that's my little friend. I made multiple pacts with him when I was very, very small. And they look at her going, so you're pacted with a demon? And she goes, oh, no. He was a fallen angel. Then he died to become an imp. And they all look at her going, why? And she goes, he died to become an imp because I wanted to pact with him. So I took his memories from him and I killed him, and then I gave him his memories back after he became an imp. And they ask, how do you know this? And she goes, I am the one who healed him when he was very, very injured, and I prefer not to answer any more questions. And he pops up again and says, thank you, and disappears again. And Izumi says, get the hell back here. And he pops up and goes, yes. And she goes, stop popping up randomly. And he goes, but it's funny, sing the reaction. And she goes, I know, but still, it's annoying to be interrupted by a little small pipsqueak. He goes, I was 10 feet tall when you found me. And she goes, I know, but you're a pipsqueak now. And she starts busting out laughing. And he goes, hey, it's not funny. I'm like 6 inches tall now. She goes, I know, but it's still hilarious how you went from a 10 feet tall fallen angel to a 6-inch tall imp. And he goes, I still have demon magic. And she goes, and you used to have fallen angel magic, which is stronger than demon magic because fallen angels had the power and graces of the gods, not the devil. And he goes, hey, I'm sorry, okay? I fell from grace because is the thing. And she goes, I know what the thing is. I completely respect you for that decision. And he goes, see? You understand why I'm an imp. And she goes, no, I don't understand why you're an imp. I understand why you fell from grace, though. And He goes, you understand why I'm an imp, because you wanted me to be an imp, so you could contract with me, because I knew how to get you holy magic. And she goes, shut the hell up. And he goes, oh crap, I said too much. She goes, duh. And everybody's like, you know how to use holy magic? She goes, I know how to use holy heal, yes. Everybody looks at her and goes, isn't that gonna kill you one day? And she goes, no, it isn't. And Aizawa and All Might say, but holy magic is very poisonous to people who can summon demons. And she goes, I don't summon him, I just control him. And they go, what's the difference? And she goes, A, summoning means that he's under 24/7 control, and B, summoning requires you to have a demon heart inside of you. I don't have a demon heart. I still have a human/beastkin heart, or human/beast heart, however you want to say it. And they look at her and go, I'm confused now. And she goes, welcome to the club. I still am confused a little bit about it, but I understand 90% of it. And they go, but what? So Izumi is now just waiting for people to walk into the building so she can bring her house to her. So she snaps, and her building, which is her house at UA, shrinks into the ground, and the tree stays up because she didn't take her house down. She just moved it. So a tree grows in front of this lodge looking thing, and her house grows underneath the wall of thorns, and everybody sees this and like, it's not tainted by humans, right? And she goes, this isn't tainted by humans. I'm just helping the tree grow. And by me helping the tree grow, it allows me to live underneath it. And they go, that actually makes a lot of sense. And she goes, exactly. And another demon pops up next to her and saying, Izumi, you haven't used my magic forever. Why are you going to use my magic again? And she goes, shut up! I don't need them to know I impacted with 10 demons. And they look at her and go, you did what? And she goes, oh, crap. And they ask her, what are all the demons for? And she goes, first off, some of them are guardians, some are not. Most of them are guardians, though. One is a fallen angel, and another is a human with time magic. But I now have magic to control anything I do. My voodoo magic helped me to kill a man, to summon a demon, which took a good considerable amount of energy, and when I summoned him, I was working on with a pack that wouldn't turn me part demon, so I could still use it, and instead of summoning a demon, I accidentally summoned a fallen angel, which got me on the train of summoning demons. And I summoned old guardians, which turned into demons soon, and some demons who were guardians at one point and turned into other beings of higher intelligence in the demon world. So I kind of have control over everything, including plants and animals. So I'm kind of like God, if you can compare me to God. But I'm not omnipotent like God. They ask her, you're immortal? And she goes, definitely. And she just smiles and gives a cute little smile and says, in a way, actually, no, I'm not immortal. You stab me in the heart, I can die, but then you'd have to burn my body. Oh, and you guys remember the teachers versus students? And they go, yeah. When you use your death magic to pretty much drain us of our life force. And she goes, yeah, I kind of gave you some more life force than you originally had. And she looks at All Might and says, that magic injury you had is now gone. And he goes, I know, thank you. And she goes, you can stop using growth magic to increase your size. You can shrink down. You know that, right? And he goes, how did you know? And she goes, when I took your energy, I took your magic too. So I kind of saw your true form. And I understood why you use your magic. Because you look like a skinny, soggy french fry from those bakeries that use oil to cook food. Those are very strange places. And Aizawa starts to laugh, being like, yeah, that makes sense. He does look like a soggy french fry. And they all look at All Might being like, you have a skinny form? And he goes, yes, I do. And he buffs down and he's in Small Might form. And Izumi goes, haha, see? And he was going, you were guessing, weren't you? And she goes, definitely. Just not caring that she was bluffing at that point. And she goes, oh, and by the way, transformation magic is real and I have the ability to use it. And they go, what? She goes, yeah, I can transform into a wolf creature. And she points at Todoroki and says, you remember when you contracted me to basically kill your father? And he goes, yeah. She goes, yeah, I kind of took the ability to transform into that. She transforms into Warwick from League of Legends. But she's not going to stay that way. She transforms back, and I'm going to have to end it here because this is getting pretty long and I got to do some stuff for my parents. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. See you guys next time.